think it just told me I hit Trailblaze level 15, but I cut the screen off. How's my Trailblaze? Let's go. This just got real interesting, real fast. Real interesting, real fast. I am recording, right? Do I just say f it and go for it? I'm nervous. Gotta do it. Here we go. I've got a lot to talk about. The last episode ended with me landing on Eurillo 6. Since then, I've done multiple play sessions and pulled for my standard banner 5-star. I'm gonna do a story recap so you know where I'm at, then I'll show you the results of my pulls and go over some of my plans for the future of this account. In case you're new, I've been playing for about 2 years and I'm starting over on an alt as a free-to-play. The goal is to get the account far enough to start clearing endgame, outside of anomaly arbitration, and guide new players as I go. If you're interested in keeping up with me, hit the buttons all the other content creators tell you to hit, and now, story time. The first thing I did on Eurillo was leave. I went back to Pom Pom to get another Trailblaze level reward, then I went back to her to Space Station, re-explored, talked to everyone I could to see if I had missed anything, then I went back to Eurillo. A few steps in, I found this plant-looking thing called a calyx. There are 2 different varieties of calyx, gold and crimson, and they're used for farming things like XP or trace materials. For each attempt, you use a currency called Trailblaze Power, which a lot of us call stamina, and you generate it passively. How quickly you generate it slows down after 300, so it's good practice to get on daily and use what you have before reaching that, but you can have 2,400 in reserve, so 2,700 total. You can use fuel to replenish your stamina if you don't want to wait, but I wouldn't encourage doing this until later in the game when you can get higher tier loot. I've been using all of my stamina so far to get credits and have been making it a point to use assist characters to speed up the process. After farming, I went deeper into the snow plains and found a man named Sampo hiding in the snow. He says he's hiding from the Silvermane guards, which are like military police. I remember not liking Sampo, but after revisiting the story and experiencing him again, my opinion has changed, and I'll get into why later. Anyway, we're not Silvermane guards, and so Sampo warns us to be careful of them and starts guiding us to a nearby city since we're new here. But on the way,
stop! You violated the law.
We run into some Silvermane guards and they try to arrest us because they think we're Sampo's accomplices, but they get folded like origami. And then their captain shows up. It's Japar. You might remember him from the first episode. He's one of the standard banner 5-stars. Bro has force fields. He was on his Tetsuo Shima, Violet Pard, Mewtwo. Your Charizard is poorly trained. He fights us and we probably would have packed him up too, but they put me in a cutscene when he got to 30% health. Sampo apparently ran away during the fight and the guards can't track him because he has some special technique where he doesn't leave footprints behind in the snow. We tell Japar we aren't his accomplices and actually aren't even from the planet and show him pictures of what Eurillo looks like from space. He says that he knows that before the eternal freeze that froze the planet over, people from beyond the sky used to visit, but it's been 700 years since then. Rather than arrest us, he takes us to see the Supreme Guardian in the city of Bellabog. The Supreme Guardian is a baddie, so is her daughter Branya. And you may remember Branya is who I'm looking to get from my starter pool. Nicolia welcomes us and seems open to us helping and dealing with the Stellaron. Between making it to Bellabog and actually going into Nicolia's office, I stopped for the day and came back the next, used all my stamina, and it got me to Trailblaze level 15, which gave me 10 standard banner passes and put me over the 40 I needed to get my 5-star. I did my pulls and put the character I got on my team before speaking with her. She arranges for us to stay in a fancy hotel and says we can talk more about the matter tomorrow. But when we go and rest, we wake up to find out we're under arrest by her daughter and Pela for trying to incite rebellion. I guess we know who the villain of the story is going to be. Getting arrested though. We took off, ran into a part of the city that got corrupted by the Stellaron, hoping to escape, but Branya's kind of ruthless. She follows her, catches up, and we fight. And unfortunately for her, the Astral Express crew got hands. Sampo comes in and drops some boogie bombs and breaks up the fight. The smoke knocks us out, and he takes us all underground to a hospital run by Natasha. When we woke up, she told us we were okay and could go look for Don Hung, March, and Branya, who already went out. We step outside and find March, who is also looking for Don Hung. And she got baited into playing hide and seek with some kids who said if she won, they'll tell her where Don Hung went. I help her win, and Hook, the leader of this group of kids, and clearly the only important one since she's the only one with a good design, takes us to the fight club, which is where Don Hung went with Sampo. Stepping in, we see Don Hung in the octagon about to fight 2 robots. The fight announcer called him
Cold Dragon Young!
March and I hop into the ring to help him out, but honestly, Don Hung is not normal and could have soloed. Sampo was spectating us and ran off after we won. I'm assuming he was scared of getting beat up after knocking us out and taking us underground without telling us why. Don Hung is suspicious of Sampo, believing he knocked us out to cover up something and not just to help us escape. The Sampo offers to continue to help us by introducing us to Wildfire, who are basically the Silvermane guards of the underground. On our way, we see Branya getting attacked by some vagrants. One of them shoots at her from just a few feet away, but Zila pops in and splits the bullet before it connects. Now, I don't know if Zila is just faster than bullets or if she can stop time, but it's very clear from this feat alone that she is not someone to be messed with. And I had a hard time believing that there was anything in the underground that could threaten her physically after seeing her. She can teleport too. Those vagrants took off as soon as she showed up. Branya starts complaining right away about being dragged into the underground rather than saying thank you for outspeeding a bullet to save me, and she and Zila immediately start beefing. Zila says she's going to bring Branya to see Oleg, the chief of Wildfire, in the mine. That's also who Sampo wanted us to see, so we tag along. There are a bunch of of mines in the underground, but because of the fragmentum, many of them aren't safe anymore, and people have lost their homes. The vagrants have made the mine we're going to their new home and are starting fights with the people who already work there. Mining geomarrow and sending it to the surface is how the people of the underground get supplies, so fighting and disrupting work is very bad. To keep the peace, wildfire got involved. Stepping into the mine, we see Nat taking care of the injured, and she tells us she heard miners say Oleg was further in. Going further, we see a portion of the mine has been taken over by robots, led by a bigger robot named Svarog. Svarog is a several hundred-year-old military robot, and he took over the mines because of the conflict. Some miners found a massive geomarrow vein, and legally, as the ones who found it, they get to decide what to do with it, but the vagrants started fighting them over it. To put a stop to that, Svarog stepped in and took control of the vein, and if anyone wants it, now they gotta get past him, but no one wants smoke with Svarog. Svarog is also caretaker to a young girl named Clara. She tells Svarog that she thinks taking over the vein won't be enough, and he has to do more to help. Svarog is a very cold, calculating, and uncompromising machine, but when it comes to his daughter, he takes a more human approach. Without her, I think interactions with Svarog could have gone very differently. I love their dynamic, and maybe it was her design, but the two of them remind me of Berserker and Elia from Fate. When I heard about the Fate collab, I got super excited, and one of the things I wanted was a skin for Clara that made her look more like Elia, and for Svarog to resemble Berserker.
Stay back, Lyra.
Anyway, we run into Svarog, and Zila tells him she'll pack him up if he doesn't withdraw his robot. Svarog just walks away and lets a big robot deal with her. Svarog is a bad, but I do think Zila clears. We help her fight though, and afterward Chief Oleg shows up. We tell him that we're looking for the Stellaron so we can put an end to the disaster. But he says he's never heard of a Stellaron, but if there's anyone who would know, it would be Svarog. But Svarog doesn't make it easy for people to talk to him. Oleg says we can talk more about it tomorrow and tells us to leave and get some rest, but asks Branya to stay behind so they could talk, since the Silvermane guards haven't been in the underground for at least 10 years because the Supreme Guardian decided to seal it off. At the hotel, we start having nightmares and can't sleep, so we leave the room and we see Branya. After her talk with Oleg and learning more about the underground circumstances, she's becoming less confident in the Supreme Guardian's decision to arrest us and her decision to seal off the underground. We decide to walk and talk, and as we walk, we bump into Zila and Nat. Zila is offering to head to another town to look for medical supplies since Nat is running low. This town is also where Zila and Nat are originally from, but Nat says it's too dangerous to go alone. Knowing Zila though, I doubt it. But still, we heard that exchange just in time and offered to go with her. We head over to Rivertown and we find a little boy from Boulder Town, which is where we were prior, who snuck over to take medical supplies to sell for money for his father. Branya offers him a medal given to her by the architects that is extremely valuable and says that he could sell that for money for his family rather than sneaking off and stealing. The supplies belonged to Nat, but she had to leave them behind because of the corrosion and head to Boulder Town. She used to run a hospital and orphanage here, and Zila is one of the orphans she took care of. We head to that orphanage to look for more supplies and find a snow globe Branya recognizes from her childhood. Branya then remembers that she was born in the underground and was adopted and brought to the surface, but doesn't remember much about her childhood. Zila is surprised to learn that Branya is not only from the underground, but also that someone from the underground qualifies for the role of Supreme Guardian. Branya starts to beat herself up for forgetting her past and not doing enough to help out the place where she came from. And Zila's like, shut up, crying about it isn't gonna help, get to work. And Branya's like, you know what? Facts, let's get to it. Zila offers to show her around the orphanage more and says that her memories of it from when she was younger are crystal clear. I leave Branya and Zila alone since they're actually getting along and keep looking for supplies. I bump into Clara and a robot named Perkins who had the same plan. We split some of the painkillers we found with her. She wanted some for the vagrants who have taken shelter outside Svarog's base. We go back and tell Nat and she's okay with it since she knows Clara is just trying her best to look out for people, and afterwards we get Natasha as a playable 4-star character. I meet up with March and Don Hung and we talk to Oleg, who says he wants to remove the restrictions on the underworld, and we want info on the Stellaron, and for either of us to get what we're looking for, we have to deal with Svarog. Ideally, we can just talk, but we should prepare for a fight just in case. He designates Sampo to be our guide to Svarog's base. When we get there, we're blocked by 2 giant gates. Sampo gives us the intel we need to get past the first, but by the time we get to the second one, he's gone. A tiny robot comes up to us and says if we want to get past the gate, we'd need permission from Clara, and that Clara went back to Rivertown. So we went to look for her and made it just in time because she was getting attacked. We save her and ask her if she can convince Svarog to talk with us, and she doesn't feel like she can, so she denies our request. We go back to the settlement and find Clara trying to fix a machine that was damaged by the vagrants. We help her fix it and again try to convince her. We succeed and she lets us pass the gate to see Svarog. Because of Clara, Svarog is willing to hear us out, but when we mention the Stellaron, which is apparently restricted information, he turns hostile and we end up fighting. I'm gonna be so honest, even though I reached the level cap for the moment, I was still very nervous taking on this fight because of the memories of what it was like my first time. And my turn-based RPG of choice prior to this was Pokemon. I wasn't used to trying to strategize with teams of 4, at least not like this, but I also wasn't familiar with gacha. The idea of pulling for characters was a completely foreign concept. I didn't even pull on the starter banner at this point because I thought the idea of pulling was a scam, and I was content with just playing with the free characters. The only reason that changed was because a friend suggested I do the starter pulls, but I still didn't pull for a limited character until 4 months after I started playing. I started playing in December of 2023, and I didn't pull until April for adventuring. The difficulty in not just trying to figure out how to build teams and characters in this game, but also understanding gacha is why I wanted to start this series. I don't want people to go through what I went through, and if I'm doing a bad job at helping, please let me know. After getting Svarog's health down to a certain point, I'm put into a cutscene. Sampo shows up with Nat, and she says we can't put up our best fight without a doctor on the battlefield. We continue the fight, win, and Nat comes in with this massive gun ready to take Svarog out for good. Clara jumps in front of Svarog before she fires. I'm happy Clara got her to stop because Svarog is not a villain here, even if he's making it difficult for Wildfire. You gotta be careful with that though. We saw what happened when Ash did that. Clara convinces Svarog to share his intel, and we learn that the old Supreme Guardian activated the Stellaron to help her in the war with the Antimatter Legion, but shortly after came the Eternal Freeze. Some of her researchers discovered that the freeze was triggered by the Stellaron, but the Supreme Guardian didn't want that knowledge to be known to the public unless they discovered a way to destroy the Stellaron, which it's clear they didn't. And we learn that the current Supreme Guardian is aware of the Stellaron. Branya is trying to figure out why, if her mother knew about the Stellaron, she'd attack us, rather than taking our aid. I talked to Nat and she thanks us for our help and tells us that she's the actual chief of Wildfire, not Oleg, but he represents her so she can continue hospital work. She says that we need a plan to deal with the Supreme Guardian and that she's sending Zila to help us. And this is where I stop. I'm so happy I made the decision to go back through this because there's so much of it that I forgot, but there's also some subtle things I can pick up on now that I have future knowledge. Like after leaving the Supreme Guardian's office, Japar tells us that if we like music, we can sometimes go to Neverwinter Workshop and catch an outdoor performance. But when he went to describe the performer, he let out this disappointed sigh, and I know now that that reaction comes from the performer being his big sister, and she's quite the character. I remember Zila being harsher, but maybe I was trolling her my first time with some of my dialogue options and was actively pissing her off. But no, she's chill, just hardened by her living conditions, doesn't take bullshit, and she lacks subtlety, but she's got a lot of love and is working hard to do right by others. And she was very accepting of us when she learned we were there to do the same. My original problem with Sampo was just that he was sneaky and I didn't think he was trustworthy, and he'd vanished without a word. But in revisiting, sure, those things may still be true, but he always did right by Wildfire. And even though he'd vanish on us, he'd always come back if he felt the situation called for. And he never betrayed us. He left during our first fight, but Japar didn't end up arresting us. He came back when we were getting attacked by Branya and got us out of trouble. He left when we made it to the gate, but he came back with Nat, who we knew would want to help us. I even did a side mission with him where a character stole something and tried to sell it to him. And when he learned it was something we were looking for, didn't take the deal and told us where we could go to get the item repaired since it broke when I beat up the guy who stole it. So for now, he's won me over. I only have a few complaints so far about what I've gone through, but the biggest has to be world exploration. The game doesn't need to be some big open world for me to enjoy it, but the environments do feel too small. Bellabog doesn't feel like a city, it just feels like a small area with like 3 or 4 notable buildings, and the underground feels like a bunch of hallways. That's basically all Penacony was, and I hated it there. It sucks that such a fun story is contained in such a bland environment, and I'd like the exploration to feel more like exploration and less like checking corners. Anyway, enough of that. I know you've been waiting. The polls. Who'd I get? Knowing me, I'm gonna do a montage. I was going for Branya. Wish me luck. I'm nervous. Gotta do it. Here we go. I got well. Of course, I'm disappointed I didn't get Branya, but the character I wanted if I missed her was actually him. So even though it's not a big win, it's still a win. Himiko and Clara are likely better, but I just think Welt is cool. His bounce skill lets him hit multiple enemies, and if it's just one, he hits them multiple times. And the slow and action delay he inflicts makes it easier to get value out of Asta's ult. When I got Welt, I dropped Archer. Archer doesn't have the trace unlock that lets him add 2 skill points, and he's too skill point hungry for me to want to use him without it. But he's likely going to be my DPS for the second team. As for my plans with Welt, I still want want Branya, I'm gonna keep grinding for passes and hope I get her. I can get her guaranteed at 300 pulls, but hopefully I land her before then. We're getting a golden companion spirit soon, which is an item we can cash in at this shop, or a 5-star. I don't recommend using it on any of the standard characters since they're always available to us. They're going to be adding Topaz to this roster, but I'm only considering Ranma. She makes it so everyone does more damage, breaks enemies more easily, and enemies stay broken longer. Very powerful pickup and would benefit any team I put her on. So a team could likely be, well, Branya, Ranmei, and Danhong PT. We're also getting a Hyacinth and Trippy rerun. I only have one good sustaining option right now, so I think Hyacinth would be a good pickup for another team, but Trippy is also good, similar to Ranmei in a few ways, but I think Hyacinth is a priority. But if anyone has suggestions, I'm open to them. Also, I did some other pulls. There were some limited time events ending, and I grinded those out for the rewards, and I pulled for Dan Hong's light cone. I don't think Dan Hong has any good free light cones, and I figured since I already had him, I could safely go for his light cone. If you disagree, feel free to let me know, but the light cone gives him a 64% attack boost, makes it so his ult heals allies for 10% of his attack, plus an extra 10% if that person has the lowest HP, and makes everyone deal 24% more damage for 3 turns, plus an additional 12 if they have a summon. The strength of Dan Hong's shield is based on his attack, so that 64% attack buff is huge. The heal from his ult is cool, but what's more important is the damage buff for all allies. Dan Hong gives an ally a summon with his technique and skill, and so they have a 36% damage buff after his ult. I could have saved those pulls to further my character roster, but I'm hoping I don't regret it. I haven't talked too much about the 4-star characters, and I'm thinking about maybe making a dedicated video just for them. Also, I'm likely going to start uploading my raw gameplay, and I'll likely unlist those videos but put them in a public playlist. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for sticking around. If you enjoyed, I said it in the beginning, you know what to press. Till next time.